Hi, my name is Jon Henry, and I'm here to talk to you about the Vice President of Education. The Vice President of Education has four main responsibilities. The first one is scheduling the meeting roles and speaking slots for each of the meetings. The second is keeping track of members' progress and submitting their awards. Thirdly, the mentoring program. And lastly, it is running the speech contest. Let's talk about scheduling. There's two ways to approach scheduling. The first one is to try to schedule every member with a complex algorithm so that they rotate between all the roles from speaking to master to evaluator, etc. I've tried that. It's really hard to maintain. People don't show up or people don't want to fill a role. I discourage that approach, but that's me and my setting, my club. It didn't seem to work. It may work in your setting. Go for it. I prefer the approach to let the membership sign up for the roles that they want. We do this at our club, and we use a couple strategies to accomplish that. First of all, we use a Google spreadsheet that's available 24/7 to all of our membership, which they can go to and they can sign up for a role as far out as a year in advance. Secondly, we pass around a paper sheet that reflects the online schedule at each of our meetings. So if there's a vacancy, that paper sheet can pass by them during the meeting and they can sign up for it. This creates redundancy to help us fill all those roles in advance. And of course, we look towards the Toastmaster of the day for each of our meetings to make sure those roles are filled, in addition to the general evaluator putting some pressure on them to make sure the evaluation team roles are all filled. Now, the education person can assist in this, but generally, with our club, we allow the Toastmaster and general evaluator to make sure the roles are filled, bottom line. We also have the president or officer in charge of the meeting look at that paper schedule at the end of the meeting and just look at it with the club, go over it one last time to make sure if there's any vacancies, especially if the Toastmaster role is vacant, that's filled before the meeting is. You're wondering, what do we do about new members and scheduling them? In our club, we have the Vice President of Membership who's already processing the new members, getting them started, getting them introduced to the club. We have that person schedule out their first two speeches. We have an online schedule. We put them in and we let them know those dates, and they can go on to that schedule and they can change the dates if necessary. But we want to make sure we schedule them, especially because our club likes to get online and schedule their speeches out weeks or months at a time. Something else that I take responsibility for as the Vice President of Education, that is scheduling education speeches. And we have all these speaking series and Better Club series that Toastmasters offers, and we can take advantage of them. But in addition to that, there are certain education themes that we have with our club. Like we might have a theme for the month for education, might be vocal variety. Well, on one of the weeks during that month, I want to schedule one of our veteran speakers who's really good at vocal variety to give a speech on vocal variety, and we talk about vocal variety throughout that month. Every club is different. Your club may not do that. It's something I feel very strongly about, that we need to keep educating our club, and so each month I want to have at least one education speech scheduled, and we build our schedule out a year in advance, so I just block those speaking slots out for education. Our schedule is online, and we build it out for the Toastmaster year, July to June of the following year. I want to make sure that I also put in as many pertinent dates as necessary on that schedule. Namely, I want to block out dates when we're having speech contests so people aren't signing up to give speeches or fill roles on those dates when it's a speech contest and it's going to be an entirely different meeting. I also put on there extra dates like our area contest, our division contest, our district contest, so people can plan for those. And we also occasionally have additional evening meetings because we have such a large membership. we want to have special meetings occasionally to allow members to knock off some extra speeches that they just don't get a chance to in a normal meeting. Let's talk about keeping track of members' progress and submitting their awards. On our Google spreadsheet, which I use for a lot of administration in our club, I can keep track of each member's progress on that spreadsheet. What I like to do is bring my computer to the meeting, and every meeting when somebody finishes their speech, I know exactly what speech they did. So right then and there, I go online to that spreadsheet and I put in the date of that speech. Now, some vice president of education like use the big boards you can get from Toastmasters, and that's fine. You have a physical board, you pull out people's names, and you can just check off their progress not only on speaking but also on the competent leader track. And that's a great way to do it. I like to do the online one because it's just right there, and it's access 24/7 for me and for the rest of the club, and I don't have to worry about lugging these boards around. Keeping track of members' progress is a great way to just segue right into your distinguished club program, because when you look at that program, you're looking at, okay, how many people are going to achieve a competent communicator award, a competent advanced communicator award, a competent leader award, etc. And so if you're keeping track and you have that stuff right there, which I do online, I can go, oh look, Fred is 2 speeches away from one. So that's just a great way to keep track and to anticipate who's going to finish what awards. As Vice President of Education, if you're keeping track of members' progress, however you do it, paper or online, doesn't matter, you have an idea how far they are and you're ready to recognize them when they achieve an award. In our club, we have something called a Nickel Award. It's when they've completed their first 5 speeches, and we want to recognize them early on because we want to encourage them to continue the journey and finish that award. So we'll have them stand and we'll applaud them, and we give them a $5 gift certificate to the local coffee shop. And in our club, we go for coffee after every meeting, every week. There's a large contingency of our membership that goes for coffee. And so this is just a great way for them to get a free cup of coffee that week and recognize them, pat them on the back, and keep cheering them on. Now, in addition to that, when somebody achieves another award, I always have them stand in front of the club during the meeting and we applaud them. And in addition to that, I'll tweet it so it goes automatically on our tweets show up on our website, and so anybody who happens to show up or not show up at a meeting and show up on our website can see, oh look, Susie earned her Competent Communicator Award. In addition to that, our general evaluator in our club, we encourage them to write a summary each week, and that gets emailed out to the whole club. And we use Google Groups to maintain our email list so it's all in one spot. And so that goes out to that group. And that could also include, hey, Susie earned her Competent Communicator Award. So there's multiple ways where we're recognizing people for their efforts. The applause, the gift certificate, the tweet, the email. Let's talk about mentoring. This is a tough subject because I've tried a lot of different approaches with mentoring in our club and have had a mixed amount of success and a lot of failure. What's typically done in Toastmaster clubs is a new member is assigned a current member as a mentor. Now, that can work, but in my experience, it doesn't work very often because we don't know the chemistry and we don't know how much initiation is going to be taken up by the new member or the existing member. It's all about initiative, and if neither one is taking initiative, then even though we've made an assignment and people have said they're willing, it doesn't mean they're actually going to follow through. So I don't use that approach anymore. In our club, we tell new members up front that we like to encourage mentoring relationships, and we encourage them as a new member to seek out any current member as a mentor. If they know who they have a chemistry with, who they get along with, who they want to learn from, and so by approaching them personally, there's a higher likelihood that a mentoring relationship is going to happen. And that mentoring can be a season, or it could be ongoing, and no real ending point in mind with that relationship. It's how each person wants to pursue it. And we've had both of those experiences in our club. As I mentioned earlier, our club goes out for coffee after each meeting. And there is a organic, natural form of mentoring that takes place in those settings. Without any kind of formal assigning people are able to talk in a conversational, easygoing way about their Toastmaster journey. And there's some mentoring taking place without it being called mentoring, just by having those conversations take place naturally. And that has worked well for us. In addition to these approaches, I've modified the responsibilities in our club so that the VP of membership is sending out an email to new members when they join, informing them about some of the new things that are happening, what they can look forward to, so they get that introductory email. It's kind of an orientation, but one that's just read. Something that we've done to adjust and accommodate is to send out a monthly email. Now, I used to do this as VP of membership with just the new members, but we've expanded it and saying, well, no, there's a lot of current members and people who've been in the club a long time that really aren't familiar with a lot of aspects of Toastmasters. So we send out a monthly email that goes not only to the new members, but to all the membership on a set variety of subjects that just are, you hit these subjects, the same subject each month. That's a form of mentorship in our club. Again, your club's different, you're going to do it differently, but that's how we do it. And I wish you the best of success on whatever approach you take, because mentoring is a challenge. It's hard to get people to connect. The workload is heaviest on this position. For that reason, in our club, I've divided the responsibilities. Now, some clubs might call that a committee, an education committee. Committee is a bad word in my mind. So I've split the responsibilities, actually created new positions. So I've struggled with mentoring in the past, worked with it for years in our club, even asked other people to do it and approach it differently than I have. And it still seems to be a struggle. So we've actually created a sub-officer role for mentoring. So that person is just focusing on mentoring alone. And that's all they do. The other area is contests. That's a big responsibility. So in our club, we've created another officer role called special events. And we do 2 big parties outside the meetings a year in our club, and that special events person is in charge of organizing them. In addition to that, they help organize the speech contests. And there's speech contests in the spring and in the fall, and there's 2 of them each time. That's a lot of work going into that. There's the contest chair, there's the chief judge, there's the judges, there's the timers, there's the Toastmaster, there's etc. There's all kinds of roles to fill and certificates and rules, and there's a lot to be handled. Again, that's a lot to put on the vice president of education. So if you have somebody who can take that ball from you, it's basically delegating that responsibility to another person. And in our case, we've just created another officer role to be in charge of that, is an extremely big help. Really like to take something that's already really good and make it better. That's how I'm wired. So in addition to these normal responsibilities as Vice President of Education, I create a list of additional goals that I want to accomplish. And I put those on our Google spreadsheet so the whole club can see them if they want to. I'm accountable for them, and I can list out, these are some ideas I really want to see happen, specifics. For example, this year, one of the goals I want to have, I've had, is to help organize at least 2 evening meetings to help people get some more speeches under their belts, because our schedule gets built out way in advance. People are anxious and ready to sign up for speaking. The last area I'd like to touch on is mentoring your successor. Most clubs do a 1-year term of office for their clubs, and our club does that. But this year, I am doing a 6-month term and having my successor do the next 6. Down over coffee sometime, talk about all the details, all the responsibilities, so they have an awareness of what's taking place, and then they can watch what I'm doing and help out in some of those areas. And thirdly, that transition, when they take over, I can be there as an assistant to help them in their 6 months if they have any questions. We're not just giving them a whole year. It's a bigger responsibility to bite off a whole year. The role of Vice President of Education is very busy and taxing, but it is also very rewarding to help other people on their Toastmaster journey.